You're watching America Trends. I'm Mary Burt-Godwin, and I am excited to introduce you to our next guest. He is a professor at American University. His name is William Lawrence. We're going to talk about some politics. Welcome to the show, William Lawrence.
Hi, nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well. So thank you so much for joining us today. There's a lot going on in the country in politics. And so first I want to talk about your background a little bit. You teach Poly-Sci and International Affairs at American University in DC. And you analyze international and American politics, both international and American, as well as economy and security for leading consulting and risk firms and international media like the BBC and France 24. Yeah. And you've led efforts under Bush and Obama to support global entrepreneurship. Pretty amazing resume there. So I'm very excited to have you today. And, you know, we're first on our agenda to talk about is the Trump arraignment and the political implications, because as far as we know, he's still planning to run. Is this going to affect that? And where are we at right now with the arraignment?
So nice to see you. I'm actually in one of those firms right now, although they told me to turn the camera a certain way and not another way. And I won't even mention the NDAs and all that. But the Trump is the talk of the town in many ways. Last night I was at the former Trump Hotel, which is now a gorgeous Waldorf Astoria, and I met a lot of former Trump officials who have sort of repositioned themselves in DC politics, lobbying, and corporate stuff. And everyone's following very closely everything related to Trump still, you know, sometimes even as if Biden's not president. In terms of the Trump arraignment, I think the thing that most struck me is right after that whole show, you know, on cable news and everywhere else about the trip to New York, Trump was back in New York a couple of days later, testifying in giving a deposition for the New York AG case, and nobody followed it. So it's not the fact that Trump went to New York that's important for that arraignment. It's that Trump has 19 lawsuits by the latest count. Wow. He's paid out major reparations and penalties for the cases he keeps losing. And this is going to be a steady stream of trials and payments and losses for Trump right through 23 and 24. And how that affects things politically, in my mind, is if you look at the American population, and Republicans are sort of in the high 20s and Dems in the low 30s, and independents are now the largest political grouping in the U.S., 38%. You know, 80% of which either lean Dem or lean Republican. But when you look at independents in the 18, 20, and 22 elections, they broke increasingly against Trump, and they don't like what's going on with all these crimes that Trump is alleged to have caused. You know, the Trump University was $25 million in payments. That fraud. You know, there are many other cases against him for overvaluing and undervaluing his properties. Those are all going to court. He paid $1 million damages for one thing, $1.6 million damages another. And this is just bad for the Republican brand, bad for the party. And so those independents are the ones that are going to make it impossible, probably, for Trump to win in the general, unless the Biden presidency just completely implodes. But right now, you know, most Dems and independents would vote for, you know, cartoon Biden. Over reliving the collective trauma of the Trump presidency, which is still causing these Trump acolytes and sycophants I was meeting with last night to sort of scurry around trying to fix their reputation here in the city. So that's how things are. You know, he's almost a lock for the Republican nomination, but it pretty much stops there because of everything else going.
Well, I guess that's what part of my question was. I know that I feel like there is a lot of I don't know, infighting is the right word, but where is the Republican Party leaning with all of him, with Trump in the middle of all these alleged crimes and the arraignment? How does that affect him being named the nominee?
So nobody in the Republican Party in DC likes Trump. You know, not even Lindsey Graham. I just saw Newt Gingrich in the street 20 minutes ago and had a quick conversation with him. You know, he doesn't like Trump. Nobody likes Trump, but they don't say it publicly. Publicly, they have finger to the wind and they're following where the public is. And roughly 2/3 of the Republican Party still support Trump, so they won't say much publicly. They'll say it privately. They won't say it publicly, and because of that, Trump has seized control of the Republican Party, has a huge following of the MAGA side of it, and I don't see that breaking anytime soon. Plus, DeSantis's funders have started to back out. He's made a lot of gaffes in Florida, so him as the challenger is starting to be questioned. And if I can add just one other thing, I work a lot on countering extremism, both domestically and internationally. So because of that, over the last 3 years, I've gotten deeply involved in J6 stuff. I know a lot of the people. I was down at the DC jail last week. I sort of follow the J6 side of things as well. And the J6ers are pissed off at Trump, because they feel he threw them under the bus. The 900 that were arrested, the dozens still in detention. There's a trial going on in federal court right now, and the Proud Boys lawyers are pissed off at Trump. So even that side of his MAGA base is unhappy with him. Now, those aren't big numbers, but people have started to figure out wherever you are on the political spectrum, Trump doesn't have your back. And that is why his candidacy is doomed to failure.
Yet he's still potentially leading the pack to be the. That's very questionable, I would say. But so you mentioned Biden, and I want to talk about that too. He is coming out and saying he's going to run again. Is that still the pulse of how things are, and is that what you're hearing within the party, that they want that to be the case?
Yeah, 100%. Everyone at the dinner last night was like, he just hasn't announced yet, but the decision's been made. It was made in the December timeframe. There were some questions whether Biden was up to it health-wise, whether Kamala Harris would be the running mate. A lot of things changed, including all the legislative victories the Dems had going back to last summer. And Kamala Harris has started to shine from the DC political standpoint after she had not been very popular, way below him in the polls because of, her sort of strident and caustic tone sometimes, and all the gaffes she made on international trips and other things, in particular the trip to Central America. But she just had a very successful trip to Africa where for the first time she did everything right on an international trip. And the abortion issue has catapulted her back into the center of party politics as she goes around the country helping mobilize voters, whether in Wisconsin or in the wake of the Kansas developments on the abortion issue, and this has got her back in the limelight in a positive way. On the Democratic side of the ledger, of course, Republicans in DC have nothing good to say about either Biden or Kamala Harris, whether or not they're succeeding. But there's a lot more fragmentation in the Republican Party now than in the Democratic Party. And I wouldn't have said that 1 year ago. That 1 year ago, I would have said that Democrats are very fragmented.
Yeah, I remember last summer there was a lot of fragmentation, and his approval ratings were not high. I was going to ask you what the approval ratings for Biden are around this time.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked today or, in the last week, but, Biden dipped probably at the low end in the mid to high 30s. He's back to the low to mid 40s, which is almost where all presidents are these days. Trump at his height was never above the mid 40s. Trump is now in the high 20s in terms of approval. I always say once you're below 29, you're toast in terms of national politics. But Biden has crept back a little bit in part because, the inflation debacle wasn't as bad as it could have been. Supply chain has resolved. A lot of the economic and political issues that were being pinned on Biden have started to resolve or have resolved. Obviously, there's more to come. Energy prices are back up. The housing market hasn't fully recovered. Parts of it have. And obviously, there's the risk to the banks. I don't know if you heard the Goldman Sachs news today and all that, but there's plenty of things to worry about in the U.S. economy, but certainly things are significantly better than, say, they were last summer.
And what's the timeline for when President Biden might announce running again, and then also who he would choose for his running mate? Because it's not, like you mentioned, it's not necessarily going to be Vice President Harris.
Oh, it's Harris now for the reasons I was saying.
Okay.
Buttigieg was sort of the runner-up at a certain point, and for a while, Buttigieg, you may remember last year, was doing all the Sunday shows, as sort of an indication that he may be the new favorite deputy in the Democratic Party. But that's long since passed with Kamala's recovery in recent months. I think, I mentioned sometimes Republicans are finger to the wind. I think on the announcement of Biden's reelection, it's finger to the wind. I think they're going to wait till they're in a good news cycle with not a lot of, bad things drowning out the announcement that'll be made certainly before summer, but I cannot give you a date.
Professor, we've got to take a quick break. Will you stick around I have got a couple more questions for Professor Lawrence, professor at American University. I've got some more questions about DeSantis and the Disney feud, so stick around for more America Trends. We'll be right back right after this break.